This is Mrs. Carnes, and we're going to be talking about the coordinate plane today. For most of you, this is probably review. So you'll probably remember that a coordinate plane is two number lines that intersect at right angles. And so this is an example of a coordinate plane. We've got the green number line and we've got the red number line. And those two number lines are intersecting, and they intersect to form right angles. They form four right angles, and therefore we call this a coordinate plane. A coordinate plane has an x-axis and a y-axis and an origin. And those things you need to be able to identify. And these things will never change on all coordinate planes. They will always be the same. The x-axis is the horizontal axis, so this is considered the x-axis. The y-axis is the vertical axis. There's your y-axis. Those axes will never change. Now the origin is the point where those two axes intersect. So they intersect right here at this point, so that's called the origin. We will label this 0, 0, since those are the coordinates of that point, the origin. Now, the coordinate plane is also broken up into four quadrants. The quadrants always start with the upper right-hand block, and this is quadrant 1. They go counterclockwise, so this would be quadrant 2, this is quadrant 3, and this is quadrant 4. Now you can know which points are going to be in which quadrants because in this first quadrant, quadrant 1, all of the points will be positive x values and positive y values. In quadrant 2, they're going to be negative x values and positive y values. In quadrant 3, negative x values, negative y values, and in quadrant 4, positive x values and negative y values. Because remember, this is still your y-axis and this is still your x-axis. Now let's take a look at an ordered pair. You're probably very familiar that an ordered pair is a pair of numbers that locates a point on a coordinate plane. In this example, 2, 4. This is the coordinate, or the ordered pair, that we're going to try and plot on our coordinate plane. Now the 2, or the first number, is always your x-coordinate, and the 4, or the second number, is always the y-coordinate. The 2 means that you are 2 units from the origin on the x-axis, and the y, which is 4, means that you're 4 units from the origin on the y-axis. So the first x-coordinate always tells us that we can move right or left. Right would be positive and left would be negative. The 4, the y-coordinate, tells us that we can move up or down. Up meaning positive, and down would be in the negative direction. So since the 2 is positive, we would move to the right 2 units, 1, 2. So we're going to just draw this moving 2 units to the right, and then from there we would move 4 units up because it's positive 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Where we stop, that becomes our final point, and we can label this point 2, 4. Now you'll notice that this point is in the first quadrant because both the x-coordinate and the y-coordinate are positive. So let's take a look at a few questions that you might be asked. The first question says, name the coordinates of point B. So on our picture, we identify point B. Point B is right here. So if I put my pencil or my finger right here on point B, I have to decide what the coordinates are. Now remember, the x always comes first, and so this point is 2 units away from the origin in the negative direction, to the left. So the coordinate, the first part of the coordinate, would be negative 2. From here then, we would go down 2 units to get to that B point. So it would also be, the y-coordinate would also be negative 2. So point B is the point negative 2, negative 2. That gives us point B. Number 2 says, which quadrant is point K in? So once we identify where point K is, right here, we can identify which quadrants it's in a couple of ways. If you remember, this was quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it's very easy if you have that memorized to know that K is in quadrant 2. However, you could also know that point K was in quadrant 2 because the ordered pair for point K is negative 2.5 and positive 2.5. So it goes negative and then positive. So the negative direction on the X, positive direction on the Y gives me a point in quadrant 2. So which quadrant is point K in? Quadrant 2. Question 3 says, which point is 1, negative 1? So you would have to find the point 1, negative 1. You have to remember again that the 1, the x coordinate, is 1 unit away from the origin, and negative on the y means to go down negative 1 unit. And when I stop, I end up with this point, and that happens to be point E. And finally, you might have a question that asks you, which point is 4 units to the right and 3 units up? And obviously we'd be talking about from the origin since they didn't say anything. And so in this question, I would start at the origin again, and I would have to decide, I have to go 4 units to the right. So 1, 2, 3, 4 units to the right and 3 units up, 1, 2, 3 units up, and where I stop is at point G. So G would be the point that is 4 units to the right and 3 units up. So I hope this gave you a good refresher on the coordinate plane and how to graph in the coordinate plane.